There is a specific kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. It is the exhaustion that settles deep into your bones, making even the simplest decisions feel like climbing a mountain. You wake up after 8 hours of rest, but your mind still feels like heavy fog, and your chest carries a quiet, persistent weight. When you are emotionally drained, the world doesn't stop demanding things from you, but your capacity to give has completely run out. You find yourself staring at a wall or sitting in your parked car a few minutes longer than necessary, just needing a moment where nothing is expected of you. You watch the world move fast around you, people rushing, talking, planning, and you feel like you are moving through wet cement. You try to muster up the energy to care about the things that used to bring you joy. But right now, everything just feels like noise. Your favorite song sounds too loud. A simple conversation feels like an interrogation. Even the thought of deciding what to have for dinner feels like a test you didn't study for. Loving yourself in this state feels impossible because love is often taught as an action, a high-energy pursuit of self-improvement. We are told that self-love is about looking forward, fixing our flaws, and building a better life. But when the well is completely empty, trying to force yourself into a state of vibrant self-love only creates more pressure. It becomes just another task on an already overwhelming to-do list. It becomes a source of guilt. You look in the mirror and think, I am failing at this too. I can't even love myself correctly. But the truth is, you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot heal a heart that you are constantly punishing for being tired. The first step of healing isn't fixing the exhaustion. It is acknowledging that you are allowed to be tired. It is accepting that your current limitation is not a personal failure, but a natural human response to carrying too much for too long. You have been strong for a very long time, holding up walls that were meant to crumble, carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. Your mind and your body are not broken. They are simply whispering, perhaps screaming, that they need you to stop. Carl Jung beautifully reminded us, acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. Before you can analyze why you are here, before you can build a plan to get out, you have to just be here. You have to look at the emptiness inside you and say, it makes sense that I feel this way. Imagine a friend coming to you, weeping from sheer depletion, their hands shaking from the weight of their life. You wouldn't hand them a checklist of goals. You wouldn't tell them to try harder or to find a silver lining. You would pull up a chair, wrap a blanket around their shoulders, and tell them they can rest now. You need to be that friend for yourself today. Loving yourself when you are emotionally exhausted means lowering your expectations to zero and being completely okay with that. It means understanding that on days like today, just breathing is enough. Surviving is enough. You do not have to apologize for your lack of warmth, your lack of productivity, or your lack of presence. The well is dry, and the only way it fills back up is if you stop trying to draw water from it. Allow yourself to just exist in the quiet. Allow yourself to be empty for a little while, without the desperate need to immediately fill the space. It is within this gentle, unconditional permission to be weak that the very first seeds of true, enduring self-love are planted. We live in a culture that treats resilience like an endless resource. We praise the ability to keep going, to push through the burnout, and to wear our stress like a badge of honor. We are told stories of people who overcome every obstacle without ever dropping their heads, and we secretly judge ourselves against that impossible standard. But this constant forward momentum forces us to disconnect from our actual physical and emotional reality. You learn to ignore the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your throat, and the quiet voice inside that is begging for a pause. You tell yourself, just get through this week. Just finish this one project. Just survive this one season. But the finish line keeps moving. You keep running on fumes, pretending that your strength is limitless, while inside you are quietly breaking into pieces. This constant pushing creates a profound disconnect. You become a stranger to your own heart. You look in the mirror, and you don't recognize the tired eyes looking back at you, because you have spent so long forcing that person to be strong, to be pleasant, and to be dependable. Carl Jung once observed, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This acceptance becomes incredibly difficult when who we are in the moment is someone who is struggling, depleted, and unable to perform at our usual standard. It is terrifying because we are afraid that if we admit how tired we truly are, the whole structure of our lives will come crashing down. We fear that if we stop running, we will be left behind. Or worse, that we will disappoint the people who rely on us. But true self-love begins when we stop demanding constant resilience from ourselves. It means looking at your fatigue without judgment and realizing that breaking down is sometimes the only way your system can force you to stop. You do not need to be a pillar of strength every single day to be worthy of care. Think about how much energy it takes to pretend you are okay when you are not. It is exhausting to carry a heavy heart while trying to keep a smile on your face so that no one asks questions. When you buy into the myth of constant resilience, you are essentially telling yourself that your pain doesn't matter, that your limitations are defects, and that your exhaustion is a character flaw. Letting go of this myth is an act of radical honesty. It is looking at your life and saying, I cannot carry this anymore. And that doesn't mean I am weak. It means recognizing that human beings are cyclical. We are not meant to be in a constant state of high performance or endless growth. We need times of slowing down, times of stillness, and times where we simply drop our hands and admit that we have reached our limit. Imagine how much lighter you would feel if you gave up the fight against your own tiredness. What if you stopped trying to prove how much you can handle? What if, instead of forcing yourself to push through the wall, you just sat down against it and rested? You don't have to win every battle. and you don't have to be the one who saves the day for everyone else. When you permit yourself to step off the treadmill of constant resilience, you are finally treating yourself with the basic dignity and kindness you deserve. You are allowing yourself to be human, with all the beautiful, fragile boundaries that come with it. You are acknowledging that your value is not defined by how much weight you can carry before you collapse, but by the gentle care you show yourself when the burden becomes too much to hold. When you have no emotional energy left, standard self-care practices can feel deeply out of reach. Taking an hour for meditation, writing in a journal, or organizing a complicated schedule feels like an insurmountable chore. When you are truly empty, even the things that are supposed to heal you start to feel like demands. Instead, loving yourself through a period of deep exhaustion requires shifting your focus entirely away from grand gestures. It requires moving toward micro moments of forgiveness. These are the tiny, quiet choices we make in the middle of a mundane day to stop fighting ourselves. It looks like choosing not to scold yourself when you walk into a room and completely forget why you went there, because your brain is too tired to hold the thought. It looks like choosing not to apologize to the mirror for the dark circles under your eyes, or the fact that you don't have the energy to dress up. It means sitting on the living room floor and letting the silence exist around you, without filling it with a mental commentary about what you should be doing next. It is the moment you choose to let a text message go unanswered for another day, recognizing that preserving your peace right now is far more important than being instantly available to the world. Forgiveness in these moments means lowering the bar entirely, letting it rest flat on the ground so you no longer have to strain to clear it. You allow your productivity to drop without treating it like a moral failing. You allow your responses to be slower, your focus to be softer, and you accept that a less than perfect effort is completely acceptable. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And who you truly are in this exact moment is someone who is spent. To force yourself to act vibrant and accomplished when you are depleted is a form of self-betrayal. True forgiveness means meeting yourself exactly where you are, even if where you are is a place of absolute stillness and smallness. Think about how many times a day you quietly berate yourself. You miss a turn while driving because you're distracted, and you sigh in frustration. You drop a set of keys, or you find yourself staring blankly into a cupboard, and a harsh internal voice calls you foolish or lazy. When you are emotionally drained, these tiny, negative interactions act like slow leaks in a tire that is already low on air. Micro moments of forgiveness are the act of patching those leaks one by one. When you drop something, instead of scolding yourself, you pause, take a breath, and think, "It's okay. I am just really tired today." By forgiving yourself for not operating at 100%, you create a small, safe pocket of space where your nervous system can finally begin to settle. You stop treating yourself like a cruel manager treats an overworked employee. You realize that you cannot scold yourself into a state of peace, and you cannot criticize yourself into a state of healing. You can only love yourself back to life, and that love starts with the smallest imaginable acts of leniency. It is the realization that your best looks different every single day. Some days, your best is changing the world. Other days, your best is simply letting yourself rest on the couch without carrying a heavy blanket of guilt over it. Every time you extend a tiny bit of grace to yourself for a small mistake, you are building a sanctuary inside your own mind, a place where it is finally safe to just be human. Much of our emotional depletion comes from a hidden source, the unconscious habit of prioritizing everyone else's comfort over our own well-being. When you spend years acting as the listener, the fixer, or the reliable one, you slowly train yourself to believe that your value is tied entirely to what you can provide for others. You become the person everyone turns to because you never say no, you never complain, and you always find a way to make things work. But behind that quiet compliance is a growing, suffocating exhaustion. You are constantly monitoring the moods of the people around you, adjusting your behavior to keep everyone happy, and swallowing your own needs just to avoid causing a ripple. You become a ghost in your own life, fading into the background while you pour every ounce of your remaining energy into keeping everyone else afloat. This is where the deeper psychological work begins. It requires us to look beneath the surface of our kindness and confront the uncomfortable truths about why we give so much of ourselves away. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The darkness, or the shadow in this context, is not something evil. It is simply the parts of ourselves we have hidden away because we were afraid they wouldn't be loved. It is our repressed need to say no, our deep-seated fear of letting people down, and the quiet resentment that builds when we constantly overextend our boundaries. When you shine a light into this shadow, you begin to see that your people-pleasing isn't always just pure generosity. Sometimes it is a survival mechanism. It is a way to guarantee that you are needed, because you are terrified that if you aren't useful, you won't be wanted. To love yourself when you are drained, you have to look closely at why you ran out of energy in the first place. You have to recognize that your exhaustion is often the direct result of a lifelong habit of abandoning yourself to keep the peace in your external life. Every time you said yes when your entire body was screaming no, you abandoned yourself. Every time you stayed late, listened to a toxic vent session you didn't have the stomach for, or smiled through your own pain to make someone else comfortable, you took a piece of your own life force and handed it away. You cannot heal your exhaustion if you keep giving away the very medicine you need to recover. Confronting this shadow is painful because it means realizing that you have been complicit in your own depletion. It means accepting that you have taught people that your boundaries are flexible and that your patience is infinite. But this realization is also where your freedom lives. Once you see the shadow, you can choose to do things differently. You can look at your empty hands and realize that it is not your job to fix a world that you didn't break. You can stop apologizing for having limits. Loving yourself in this space means making peace with the fact that when you start protecting your energy, some people might be disappointed. They might miss the version of you that had no boundaries, but your survival depends on your willingness to disappoint others before you ever abandon yourself again. It means looking at the people you love and silently deciding, I love you, but I have to love me more right now. It is the courageous act of pulling your energy back into your own center, closing the doors to your heart for a little while, and allowing the storm of other people's demands to rage outside without your intervention. When a machine overheats, it shuts down to protect its internal components from permanent damage. Human beings operate much the same way, yet we often fight the shutdown process, viewing it as a flaw. We feel the heavy weight pulling us downward. We feel the desire to close our eyes and step away from the world. And we immediately label it as laziness, weakness, or a lack of discipline. We force ourselves to keep showing up, to keep answering the calls, and to keep engaging in conversations that leave us feeling entirely hollowed out. But pulling back from social obligations, stepping away from extra responsibilities, and choosing isolation over small talk are not signs of a broken spirit. They can be acts of profound self-preservation. When you are emotionally depleted, your soul is begging for a sanctuary. It is asking for a place where it doesn't have to perform, explain itself, or wear a mask of forced positivity. Loving yourself means honoring this need to retreat without feeling guilty about your absence. It is the realization that you cannot show up authentically for the world when you are entirely disconnected from yourself. Carl Jung beautifully captured this necessity when he wrote, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." But looking inside requires quiet. It requires a temporary cessation of the external noise that constantly demands your attention, your opinions, and your energy. Think about how much effort it takes to maintain the illusion of being okay when you are running on empty. When you go out into the world in that state, every interaction feels like a transaction where you are giving away currency you don't possess. A casual conversation with a neighbor becomes a stressful exercise in pretending to care. A gathering of friends feels less like a comfort and more like an exhausting stage play where you have forgotten your lines. When you honor the need to retreat, you are simply admitting that you need to pause the transaction. You are locking the door to your inner world for a brief period, not to shut people out permanently, but to rebuild the home inside yourself. Giving yourself permission to disappear into your own quiet space for a while allows the dust of other people's expectations to finally settle. It gives your mind the room it needs to slowly reassemble itself, piece by small piece. A retreat doesn't have to mean going away to a far-off place. It is an internal closing of the blinds. It is choosing to spend an evening sitting in the quiet dark of your room, watching the shadows move across the ceiling, rather than filling the time with background noise. It is letting your phone sit on silent in another room while you focus entirely on the physical sensation of just being alive. It takes immense courage to tell the world, I am stepping away for a moment. We are so terrified of being forgotten or of hurting someone's feelings by our withdrawal that we sacrifice our own sanity to maintain our presence. But a forced presence is a shadow of who you actually are. When you step back, you are not abandoning your life. You are preserving it. You are acknowledging that you are a human being who requires periods of dormancy, just like the earth does before it can bloom again. By allowing yourself to retreat into the quiet, you are offering yourself the ultimate form of unconditional love, the freedom to be unavailable, the freedom to rest, and the freedom to heal in the dark where no one else is watching. From a very young age, we are conditioned to measure our personal value by our achievements, our career status, and our daily productivity. We are taught that a good day is a busy day, and that a successful person is one who always has something to show for their time. We internalize this belief so deeply that our to-do list becomes a direct reflection of our worth. When you wake up, your mind immediately begins calculating what you need to accomplish to earn your right to exist comfortably that day. When emotional exhaustion hits, this entire system collapses. Your ability to produce plummets, your focus shatters, and your motivation completely vanishes, which often triggers a deep, terrifying identity crisis. You look at your half-finished projects, your delayed timelines, or your inability to engage in your favorite hobbies, and you begin to feel worthless. You sit on the edge of your bed, looking at a stack of tasks that you simply cannot find the energy to touch, and a heavy sense of shame settles over you. You start to think, if I am not being useful, what am I? If I am not achieving things, what do I bring to the table? This is the cruel trap of tying your identity to your output. When you run out of fuel, you don't just feel tired. You feel like an absolute failure as a human being. You begin to treat your exhaustion as a character defect rather than a physical reality. But your humanity exists completely independently of your utility. You are not a factory machine built solely for continuous output, and you were never meant to be evaluated by your efficiency. Carl Jung wrote a profound truth that speaks directly to this struggle. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. When you apply this to burnout, it means you are not defined by your current lack of productivity, nor are you defined by the pressure that broke your spirit. You can choose to become someone who values their own existence above their achievements. Loving yourself through a period of depletion requires a radical, painful separation of your worth from your daily performance. You have to learn to look at your quiet, unproductive days and believe with everything you have that your existence is still meaningful, even when you are contributing absolutely nothing to the world around you but your breath. Think about how we view the people we love most. When a friend or a family member is suffering or exhausted, you do not value them less because they missed a deadline or let a project slip. You love them simply because they exist, because of their laugh, their kindness, and their presence. Yet, we rarely extend this same grace to ourselves. We act as our own harshest managers, demanding results from a soul that is begging for rest. To break this cycle, you must practice letting go of the need to justify your days. A day spent lying on the couch, staring out the window, or just gently breathing, is not a wasted day. It is a day spent surviving. It is a day spent letting your nervous system repair itself after years of overexertion. When the voice of guilt creeps in to tell you that you are falling behind, you must meet it with a soft, stubborn defiance. Remind yourself that you do not need to earn your rest. Rest is a prerequisite for life, not a reward for good behavior. By separating who you are from what you do, you strip away the power that exhaustion has over your self-esteem. You allow yourself to be empty without feeling worthless, and you realize that your true value is inherent, unshakable, and completely safe from the demands of a busy world. Setting boundaries when you are already exhausted feels intimidating because enforcing them takes energy you simply do not possess. When we think of boundaries, we often imagine loud confrontations, difficult conversations, or dramatic moments of standing our ground. We picture ourselves having to explain, justify, and defend our decisions to people who might not understand. When you are running on empty, the mere thought of that friction is enough to make you cave. It feels easier to just say yes one more time, to carry one more burden, or to endure one more draining interaction, simply because you don't have the strength to fight back. But continuing down this path is like trying to put out a fire with the last drops of your own water. Boundaries do not always have to be loud, aggressive, or confrontational. They can be quiet, internal decisions that you implement softly, without any explanation or apology. A boundary can be choosing to let the phone ring because you look at the screen and realize you don't have the emotional bandwidth to hold space for someone else's crisis today. It can be declining an invitation to a social gathering with a simple, polite statement like, "I won't be able to make it," rather than fabricating an elaborate, exhausting excuse to justify your absence. It is the choice to step out of a conversation that has turned into a venting session, or to tell someone, "I want to support you, but I don't have the capacity to talk about this right now." This quiet shifting of your energy requires a deep change in how you view your responsibility to the world. Carl Jung offered a perspective that fits this moment perfectly. Your desire for the light is the desire for consciousness. To bring consciousness to your boundaries means realizing that you are not a limitless resource for others to consume. It means becoming aware of the exact moment your energy transitions from willing generosity to resentful obligation. When you cross that line, you are no longer giving from a place of love. you are giving from a place of fear, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of being seen as unkind. Every time you gently but firmly protect your remaining energy, you send a powerful signal to your subconscious mind that your well-being actually matters. You are teaching yourself that your time, your thoughts, and your peace are valuable resources that deserve protection, especially from a world that is used to taking without giving back. You don't owe anyone an explanation for needing to preserve your own life force. Your boundaries do not require a consensus. They do not need to be voted on or approved by the people around you to be valid. Think of a boundary not as a wall meant to keep everyone out permanently, but as a door that you have the right to close when a storm is raging outside. Closing that door doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you are finally choosing to care about yourself, too. It is the realization that saying no to someone else is often the only way to say yes to your own survival. When you reclaim your boundaries gently, you stop fighting the external world and start nurturing your internal world. You allow yourself to step back into the safety of your own limits, finding comfort in the quiet space you have carved out just for you, where no one else's demands can reach you until you are ready to open the door again. The loudest voice we encounter during periods of deep burnout is rarely an external one. It is often our own inner critic. It is that relentless, heavy voice that stands over your exhaustion, telling you that you are falling behind, that others are doing so much more with less, and that your fatigue is merely laziness. When you are already emotionally drained, this harsh internal dialogue acts like a secondary drain on your system, a slow leak that saps whatever tiny drops of energy you have left. You find yourself lying down to rest, but your mind is pacing the floor, listing all the ways you are failing, all the people you are disappointing, and all the responsibilities you are neglecting. You are trapped in a cruel cycle where you are too tired to move, but too anxious to actually rest. This internal warfare is exhausting because it robs you of the only sanctuary you have left, your own mind. When your thoughts become an unsafe neighborhood, there is nowhere to run for comfort. Carl Jung touched upon this deeply painful division within the self when he wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know." When we are depleted, that unknown part of us often manifests as a harsh judge, punishing us for our human fragility. We look at our inability to cope with the same sharpness we might expect from an enemy, completely forgetting that the person we are criticizing is a wounded soul trying its best to survive. To love yourself right now, you must practice changing the way you talk to your own mind. You have to stop treating your inner critic as a source of objective truth and start recognizing it as a symptom of your exhaustion. When the thought arises that you should be doing more or that you are wasting your life by pausing, you must meet it with a soft, stubborn tenderness. You need to counter that voice with a quiet reminder. I am doing the best I can with the energy I currently have, and that is enough. Shifting away from self-criticism doesn't change your external circumstances, but it stops the internal bleeding of energy, allowing you to preserve whatever strength you have left to heal. Imagine how you would treat a close friend who came to your house, completely broken down, weeping from the sheer weight of their life. You would never look at them and say, "You need to get it together. You're being lazy. Look at how much everyone else is accomplishing." Your natural instinct would be to extend patience, to speak softly, and to tell them that their pain makes complete sense. True self-love is simply turning that exact same tenderness inward. It is looking at your own overwhelmed heart and offering it the same grace you so freely give to the rest of the world. Moving beyond internal criticism means calling a ceasefire within yourself. It is the conscious decision to stop fighting your own body and mind for being tired. When you make a mistake, when you forget a task, or when you find yourself staring blankly into space, you learn to wrap that moment in forgiveness rather than judgment. You learn to say, "It's okay that I can't do it all today." This gentle shift in dialogue creates an environment where healing can actually take place. You begin to realize that you cannot scold yourself into a state of peace, and you cannot beat yourself into a state of wellness. You can only love yourself back to life, one soft, encouraging word at a time. Life is not a linear graph of constant growth, endless productivity, and perpetual happiness. It moves in distinct, cyclical seasons. There are seasons for building, connecting, and creating, where the sun is bright and our energy feels almost limitless. But just as naturally, there are seasons for resting, shedding, and simply enduring. Exhaustion is not a permanent state of failure. It is a clear, unmistakable signal from your body and soul that you have entered a winter season of the self. Carl Jung noted this fundamental truth about the human experience when he wrote, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness." Yet, when our own winter arrives, we panicking. We look at our barren branches and our frozen fields, and we try to force summer energy into a time that demands absolute stillness. Trying to fight the season you are in only causes deeper frustration, despair, and a profound draining of your remaining spirit. You cannot force flowers to bloom in a blizzard, and you cannot force a depleted mind to innovate, socialize, and achieve when it is begging to hibernate. Loving yourself when you are completely drained means accepting the season you are actually living through, rather than wishing for the one you think you should be experiencing. It is the comforting, grounding realization that this period of emptiness is temporary. Winter does not last forever, but it is necessary. It is the time when the ground rests, when the dead weight falls away, and when the roots grow deep beneath the surface where no one can see them. Think about how much energy you waste every single day simply fighting the reality of your fatigue. You spend hours wishing you felt different, comparing your current low-energy state to a time in your past when you could handle 100 things at once. You look at others who seem to be thriving in their summer seasons, and you feel a deep sense of shame for your own darkness. But their season is not your season right now. Accepting your current winter means letting go of the struggle. It means looking at your tiredness and saying, "This is where I am right now, and it is exactly where I am supposed to be." It is the choice to stop pulling at your own closed buds, demanding that they open before they are ready. When you accept this season, your relationship with your exhaustion changes entirely. It stops feeling like a punishment and begins to feel like a sanctuary. You start to understand that resting now is not a waste of time. It is the very thing that allows the ground of your life to eventually become fertile again. You don't need to apologize for being quiet, for needing more sleep, or for stepping back from the sunlight for a while. You are simply honoring the natural rhythm of your humanity. By giving yourself permission to fully inhabit your winter, you take the pressure off your soul. You allow yourself to be still, to heal in the cold, quiet dark, and to trust that beneath the frozen surface of your life, a quiet renewal is already taking place, preparing you for the spring that will inevitably come. When you are at the end of your rope, self-love shrinks down to the absolute fundamentals of human existence. It is no longer about complex emotional processing, rewriting your life story, or making grand changes. When you are truly empty, the heavy concepts of personal growth feel like a weight you cannot lift. Instead, true healing is found in the smallest, most grounded acts of survival. It is a return to the very beginning of who you are, striping away every expectation until all that is left is the simple rhythm of being alive. It is drinking a glass of water when your body is parched. Feeling the cool liquid remind you that you are real and that you deserve to be nourished. It is feeling the physical sensation of a warm blanket against your skin, allowing yourself to sink into its weight and letting it hold you when you can no longer hold yourself up. It is stepping outside for just 60 seconds, choosing to look up at the sky and feeling the fresh air move against your face. You don't have to walk far. You don't have to exercise. And you don't have to clear your mind. You just have to feel the wind remind you that there is a vast, quiet world moving around you, and that you are a small, precious part of it. Carl Jung deeply understood this need to return to the root of things when he wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all confusion a secret order." When your inner world feels like complete chaos, you find that secret order not by fixing the storm, but by returning to the simplest laws of physical reality. You slow down your breath. You touch the earth beneath your feet. And you remember that you are a living, breathing being before you are any of the roles you play for other people. It is allowing yourself to cry without needing to understand the exact root cause of every single tear. Sometimes, the body just needs to release the heavy sorrow it has carried for months, and trying to analyze your pain only keeps you trapped in your head. True self-love means letting the tears fall simply because they need to, trusting that your heart knows how to cleanse itself if you just get out of the way. These tiny actions are declarations that you still care about your existence, even when everything else feels too heavy to carry. They are quiet promises to yourself that you are worth saving, even if you can only save yourself one breath at a time. Imagine how much pressure would lift if you allowed yourself to forget about the big picture for a while. You don't have to figure out your future today. You don't have to fix your relationships. And you don't have to heal your deepest wounds before sunset. All you have to do is take care of the next 10 minutes. Feed yourself something warm. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Close your eyes and listen to the sound of your own breathing, recognizing that every inhale is a gift and every exhale is a letting go. By returning to the basic rhythm of breathing, resting, and existing, you slowly lay down the foundation for your eventual return to yourself. You realize that you do not need to be whole to be worthy of care. You are allowed to be broken. You are allowed to be completely empty. And you are allowed to just sit in the quiet until your strength returns. You are building a sanctuary out of the simplest things, proving to your own soul that you will never abandon it, no matter how dark or heavy the journey becomes. You are here. You are breathing. And for today, that is beautifully, entirely enough. Healing is not a sudden, dramatic awakening. It does not arrive with a loud burst of music or a definitive moment where the clouds part and the weight vanishes forever. Instead, coming back to yourself after deep emotional exhaustion is a quiet, almost imperceptible process. It is the slow, gentle softening of a heart that has been braced against a storm for far too long. It is waking up one morning and realizing, with a sudden wave of quiet relief, that the fog in your mind is just a little bit lighter today. It is finding yourself laughing at a small moment or looking out a window at the afternoon light and realizing that you are actually present to experience it. You did not force this change. You simply allowed the time and space for your spirit to mend itself in the dark. Carl Jung once offered a beautiful piece of wisdom that serves as a compass for this final stage of the journey. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. When you have survived a season of total depletion, what you choose to become is not a stronger, more bulletproof version of who you used to be. You do not emerge from the winter as a machine that can handle even more stress. Instead, you choose to become someone who is more tender, more honest, and deeply protective of their own peace. You choose to become a person who honors their limits, who listens to the quiet warnings of their body, and who treats their own soul with the same reverence they give to the people they love most. The journey through exhaustion changes the very landscape of your life. You begin to see that the things you thought were completely essential, the endless hustle, the constant availability, the desperate need to keep everyone around you perfectly comfortable, were actually the very things that were tearing you apart. You learn to live with less noise and more depth. You find a strange, beautiful freedom in knowing exactly how much weight you can carry. And you no longer feel the need to prove your strength by carrying more than your share. Your value is no longer a question that needs to be answered by your productivity or your achievements. It is a settled truth, rooted deeply in the simple fact of your existence. As you step forward from this place of recovery, remember that the well will not stay full on its own. Life will continue to make demands. The world will continue to move fast, and there will always be invitations to step back into the old, exhausting patterns of self-abandonment. But you are different now. You have sat in the emptiness of the well and learned how to survive there. You have practiced the micro moments of forgiveness. You have faced the shadow of your people-pleasing, and you have reclaimed your boundaries with a soft, unbreakable determination. You have built a sanctuary inside your own mind, and you hold the key to its door. Be gentle with yourself as you navigate this return to the world. Do not rush your spring. Allow your energy to return in its own time, like water slowly rising from a deep spring. If you have a day where the tiredness creeps back in, do not treat it as a relapse or a failure. Treat it as a gentle reminder to slow down, to pull back the blinds, and to return once again to the basics of being. You are a fragile, beautiful, resilient human being, and your life is not a race to be won, but a story to be lived. Look down at your hands and realize that they are no longer clenched into tight fists of resistance. They are open, relaxed, and ready to receive whatever goodness this new season has to offer. You have walked through the darkest, quietest winter of your soul, and you did not abandon yourself in the cold. That is the greatest act of self-love you could ever perform. The dawn is coming. The ground beneath your feet is softening, and you are finally ready to step into the warmth of your own reclaimed life. Breathe in the fresh air, trust the rhythm of your heart, and know that you are beautifully, entirely whole, exactly as you are.